Hey everyone, how are we all doing? Really awesome to be down this end of the country. I have to admit I've actually never been to Mannheim before, but I was really excited to get the opportunity to kind of finally come down and see what is happening here, especially with the community, because I meet so many of you folks when you come up to Berlin. So I felt like it's only fair to come down and see where you're all based and what you're all doing. So today I want to also talk with you all, as Alex mentioned. I'm working in the sector of looking at how we can make climate action happen through our tech products. So I really want to talk about how we can support climate action with online activities. So some of the things we do every day, like searching for cakes and maybe for some coding solutions. I just read on the Stack Overflow, a lot of people spend a lot of time looking up solutions. And also, I want to talk about the data that powers that and kind of maybe what's kind of missing and what the challenges are that we're facing as well at Ecosia, and maybe you are too. So first of all, I wanted to get an idea of how many folks in the room are technologists, like working within the tech sector. So not surprising, pretty much everyone, right? And who is working on something that they would consider a solution for the current climate crisis? A few less, quite a few less. So very interesting. Who's working at a company who has some sort of public pledge of what the company is going to do towards the current climate crisis? Few more, that's great, okay, so we're getting there. And yeah, I think you might be getting the point that I'm trying to make, because the thing is, we can't wait for some miracle climate tech solution that's going to save us all. Unfortunately, we are already at the crossroads. We already need to make very hard decisions about what we're doing so that we can secure a livable future, not just for our great-grandchildren or great-great-grandchildren, but also for our children and for ourselves. It's really that soon. And we actually have the tools and we have the know-how for us to be able to limit the warming that we're seeing scientifically, but we really aren't leaning into making it happen. So this is from the IPCC report, and it was interesting that this most latest report actually called out technology for the first time. First of all, for the impact that technology is having on the climate, but also about the possibilities that technology gives us that maybe we didn't have access to previously. So just to introduce myself, I'm Jessica Greene. I use she, her pronouns. I'm at Sleepy Pioneer on Twitter and most other platforms like GitHub, etc. I'm a software engineer at Ecosia, as Alex mentioned. And as he also mentioned, I'm also a community leader with PyLadies Berlin. And I just wanted to share with you a little bit about who I am and why I got into this sector, or how I got into this sector. So I'm a career changer. I used to work in film production. That was what I studied. Then I got into specialty coffee and was a coffee roaster, which was a very great opportunity to also see firsthand a lot of the effects of climate change, because it is affecting a lot of the places where coffee grows, which, as we know, is predominantly the global south, and also having an impact on that industry directly. I switched into tech in 2017, 2018, and it was immediately clear to me that as well as switching into a different sector, a different domain of work, I really wanted to switch into somewhere that I would be able to contribute something that would be doing something towards the climate crisis that we're facing. So that's a little bit about me. And what I want to talk about today, like this is kind of like the general rundown of the topics I'm going to bring up, is kind of the responsibility of tech companies and professionals in the climate crisis, so us. Ecosia's mission to support people to take more sustainable actions online, and I hope it doesn't come across as too much of a sales pitch. I really just want to share with you like our approach, but it is only a approach. There's many different ways and we need different ways to kind of tackle this. I also want to talk a bit about like the data, because we're PyData, right? So we're probably, most of us in the room are interested in data in one form or another, and the challenges that we're facing there. And then last of all, because I don't want to leave it on a negative note, I want to talk about what we maybe can all do to work towards a better planet. So something, hopefully you're all feeling rather positive at the end and not too negative for the barbecue later. So yeah, I mentioned earlier we're in a climate crisis, and the thing is we're largely in that crisis because we keep burning fossil fuels instead of finding a path off them. And we know we have some paths, we have some ideas of how we might do that. We're just not doing it. We're choosing not to do it. So that's a problem. And I think one of the things that we don't have a good grasp of is understanding responsibility for why that is. So it's kind of easy enough maybe for us to say like, hey, our servers run on renewable energy. But what if you're relying on AWS as your cloud provider, or Google Cloud Platform? What are they running on? Or where are the other sources of where this is coming from? So often this is broken up into different scopes. And like the first scope will be like kind of the emissions from burning fossil fuels directly to make your product. And the second one will be around emissions from electricity. So like things for running your products, maybe even running the office that you all sit in. Is that renewable energy, or is that using fossil fuels? And then we have emissions from activity in our supply chain. So I already mentioned like cloud computing. There are today some ways to see what your carbon output is or your carbon emissions are for where your code is running, but they're not always fully transparent or complete. So these are things that we don't always know the answer to, but I think they're really important things for us to think about. And I think if we want to go even further, how responsible are we for our users' carbon decisions as well? So if we're creating tech products that encourage people to buy lots of new products every day or every week, that's carbon emissions. Are we responsible for that? Even if it's their decision, but we built the platform. So I think this is something really interesting for us to all think about and to think about in terms of our product. Unfortunately, the thing is that current business models either don't recognize that carbon responsibility or they pass it on to other people. So it could be that you like update to more efficient machines, which means that you're not emitting as much carbon, but then you've dumped all of the old machines that you were using in a tip, which means that there's all that waste been created. This is complex, and this is something I'm trying to get my head around, and I'm sure there's some of you in the room maybe have thought about it. You maybe have lots of ideas around this. I'd love to hear them, so I'm really trying to start conversation more than anything. But I think these are really interesting challenges for us to think about, especially as we're building lots of products, and we're also building lots of products with lots of data. So that data has to live somewhere, that data gets processed somewhere. This is all really relevant for us as technologists. So Ecosia. So it sounded like a lot of people have already heard about Ecosia. So I have this in for the people that didn't raise their hand earlier. So Ecosia is a search engine, and we are doing a search for a better planet. So you browse online, and then we help the fight on the ground. So mainly through planting trees. Around 80% of our profits go to planting trees, but 100% of our profits actually go to a better planet. It's a steward-owned company. Money cannot be taken out of it. We don't have investors. This is our mission, and everything we're doing is kind of like with that value in mind. As I mentioned, we use 100% of the profits for the planet. And the trees that we plant, we also protect. We do it with local communities because while a lot of us in the company are technologist specialists, we're not agricultural specialists. So we work with people who are within the communities where the trees are being planted. This is really important, not only because they're the people with the knowledge of how to best do this, but also if the trees are going to stay there and have long-term survival, it's really necessary that the people there have the opportunity to work on this, and they just simply know best. So this number is always going up, but this is the trees planted by the Ecosia community. So we have 15 million people currently using Ecosia, and we're involved in 35 different countries for tree planting, and that's 60 plus active projects. And as I mentioned, what we're standing for is like profits for the planet. So something everybody does every day almost. Privacy, we go beyond neutral. So we have not just carbon negative, but we're also, not just carbon neutral, we're carbon negative. So if you make a search with us, we're actually taking carbon out of the air. And we're trying to be really radically transparent. So talking about stuff like this. And simply put, yeah, we believe that saving our world shouldn't cost you the earth. So we're integrating a positive impact into your everyday actions and the stuff you're going to do anyway, like browse the internet, shop online, and so much more. And as I mentioned, we think being neutral is no longer enough, so we're sharing the power to be climate active. What that means is we realize that it's great if we're doing that, but we also need to pass on that empowerment to the people that use our product to also be able to make more sustainable choices and to be climate active in their everyday lives. And as I mentioned, this isn't meant to be really a big sales pitch. Hopefully you don't feel that way. It's just a way of like approaching this that I feel is really well done. There's many other examples out there as well. The other thing we're doing is calling out greenwashing and really trying to help people make sustainable choices. So identifying the biggest polluters. It's not always evident. We know that search engines are not neutral. All search indexes have some bias within them. That's the way it works because they work on looking at historical logs, or it's about like who's able to put better SEO on their website. We see bias for many, many different ways. Most search engines work on a model of advertisement. That means that people who pay will have their result at the top. So, you know, I think at this point, we all need to acknowledge that search is not neutral, but that doesn't mean that it can't be an experience that does something good for the world and helps us to make more sustainable choices. And these are some of the ways we're doing that. So the green leaf that you can see at the top is a little icon next to the search domain, or the little fossil fuel icon, give people an indication of the kind of domains that are in our search results, or we can show the impact, for example, for Germany or another country, and kind of really give you this information, but in a passive way throughout your journey on the search engine. So this isn't intrusive to your experience. It isn't something you have to click off and go onto a new page for. This is something you can see within the user journey that you're already taking. And recently we introduced shopping, and we have this highlighted group of results at the top, which are all sustainable products, and they're fed from a database that we're currently building, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about. So where's the data? Right? You're like, oh, that looks nice. And we just rebranded, and it does look nice. I don't work in front end, so I definitely can't take any credit for that whatsoever, but it does look kind of cool. But yeah, we're mostly interested in data, so let's talk about where the data is. So we're looking predominantly at outside sources to certify, and we're kind of currently looking, as I showed you, for like products. So we're trying to kind of go around this thing of like someone wants to buy something, can we show them a more sustainable alternative? So instead of maybe buying the Adidas sneakers, they maybe buy the Vega sneakers, or instead of buying an iPhone, maybe they buy a Fairphone. So one way we're looking at this is like how we can split up and how we can collect data around different types of sustainability information, and even finding what's out there. And this is where the challenges really come in. So collecting, cleaning, and understanding data in this field is currently super time consuming, and is actually just something that requires experts in the domain, because you know, you might be thinking like, oh, well, it has a fair trade label, so therefore it's good, right? But the thing is, I used to work in coffee, and fair trade, while being a really great initiative, is more like an insurance policy where it ensures that coffee producers earn some money, even if the conditions of a harvest are bad. Whereas if you buy direct trade coffee, that farmer or producer may actually have been able to earn more money that way. And I really think it comes down to your definition of fair, which is kind of hard to measure in an objective manner. So a lot of the problems that we find are like just too few items even have this sustainability information. And then, as I mentioned, like not all labels are standardized and they can mean different things. For clothing, there's very many different taxonomies out there, so it's not very easy to map and put into one database and to be able to say like, this product ranks above this one. And also a lot of these data sources require a lot of cleaning. We're not an incredibly big company, and our team alone is only, I think, 4 or 5 people, with 2 people very dedicated to working on this. So it's really too much work for us alone. So we have a partnership also with some domain experts from the BHT, which is the Berlin Hochschule for Technik, and the Technische TU, which is the Technische University. And we're working on this project called the Greene Consumption Assistant. So I really recommend checking this out if this is interesting to you. This website is completely in German. Currently, I'm not sure if it's going to be translated into English, but it explains there what we're trying to do. And it's a 5-year project to try and create solutions like the ones I'm talking about. And one of those solutions is the Greene database. So this is an open data set. And it's currently what fuels the Ecosia shopping vertical, which is what I showed you earlier. You can check it out on GitHub. It's still in progress, so please don't go there and expect it to be like this super shiny, completely finished thing. We're working on it a lot, but it's still a work in progress. And I think this is really interesting because this is really our first technique into thinking about how we can build a data source to really be able to rank and put and boost these kind of results into our search results. But we need to go further than that. So it's okay if we have a data bank, but that will, of course, as you probably know, if you work with data, require a lot of updating, especially fashion goes out of season really, really quick. So we really have to ensure that things are moving quickly and automated because of this. But one of our goals is actually to add these sustainability labels as a standard to the schemas for the products that are on this schema.org. And I think this is a really good approach, and this is something we can maybe all think about, and maybe there's things you also know in your own work where you can actually build this into the standard. So like another idea I've heard about would be to have a CO, like a carbon.txt, like a robot.txt on websites that lists some of the things that that website is trying to do for the climate. These are small solutions, but these are things that kind of make sure it's built in from the start, and then we have the data and we can go and build products on top of it. So I promised try and end more positive, and like what can we do? I think things that you can do are support advocating for sustainable software where you work. So you can think about what that means. There's lots of great websites like climate.tech is a great resource for finding out about how you can make your infra more sustainable, how you can do more sustainable web dev. You'll also find jobs on there if you're interested in moving into the sector. But maybe you can also apply small things in the company where you're working. So instead of using a glossy paper in the printer, you can use recycled paper or recycled toilet paper, for example. You can switch to Ecosia. So there's the sales pitch. And if you're really, really stuck, because I know that this is often a problem, you can use #G at the end, and it will take you to Google. And you can follow the GCA project, which is what I mentioned, and support us to make these standards better and more transparent. And I really welcome everyone to go check out, follow the project on GitHub. Like I said, it's not complete, but you can follow it and see what you can do to maybe get involved as well. And we can't do it alone. So I read these results on Stack Overflow while I was on the train here from Berlin, and I have to be honest, I was really, really upset and disappointed that still in 2022, we just you can't barely read this graphic, and I apologize, but it's split by gender of people that work as technologists. and it's 91.88% men, and then a breakdown of like women and non-binary, preferring not to say, and other. We also see that it's predominantly in the northern hemisphere where the biggest impacts of climate change are not yet seen, that are also working in the sector. So I think it's really, really important that we start involving more people in this conversation as well. We have a responsibility because we're the biggest groups in this, but we also need to make sure that we're looking for the other voices to support us with this work. So, thank you very much, first of all, for listening. I hope that this sparked some interest, and maybe you want to talk about it over a burger, or I'm not sure what is on the barbecue today. Some everything, vegan options. But if you do have questions and you want to reach out to me and connect, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, you can write me on Twitter. I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. So thank you very much.